What if all the fancy analysis, all the expert predictions, what if they consistently miss the most critical and, honestly, the most volatile part of the entire investment equation? Because the secret isn't hidden in some obscure market trend. It's right here, between your ears. So today, we're diving into what can either be your most powerful asset or, let's be real, your biggest liability in investing, your own mind. And this really frames the challenge perfectly. We spend so much energy trying to outsmart the market, an effort that most of the time is pretty much a lost cause. But the real battleground, the one you can actually win, is right over here, managing your own behavior. That's the one thing you have complete control over, and it's what truly separates the successful investors from everyone else. So let's get into the first pillar of a successful investor's mindset. This is all about shifting your focus away from the here and now and building a really solid foundation for long-term growth. I mean, every single day, we're just bombarded with short-term noise. It's the breaking news alerts popping up on your phone, the daily stock prices flashing red and green, the waves of panic and hype you see all over social media. It's all designed to grab your attention and make you feel like you have to do something right now. But here's the thing. The real opportunity, the place where wealth is actually created, it doesn't happen in those frantic day-to-day jitters. It's found in long-term growth. That's the signal you have to listen for through all that noise, the bigger picture that the best investors never, ever lose sight of. So, this really boils down to three critical mindsets. First, get used to thinking about your investments in terms of years or even decades, not days or weeks. Second, you have to embrace delayed gratification, understanding that what you build slowly is often what lasts the longest. And finally, trust the process. Believe me, there will be moments of doubt, but sticking to a solid plan is what gets you through the rough patches. All right, so let's move on to our next section, because this builds on everything we just talked about. If the long game is your foundation, then mastering your emotions is like a psychological shield that protects that foundation from cracking under pressure. So let me ask you a question. What really drives most of the worst investment decisions? Is it a bad strategy? Is it a lack of information? Or is it something way more basic, something human? And wow, this chart just says it all, doesn't it? Take a look at this breakdown. It's not a flawed strategy that does the most damage, not by a long shot. It's our own emotions, fear and greed. They're like these two giants wrestling for control of your portfolio, and between them, they are responsible for almost all of those impulsive, destructive trades. And this is such a critical distinction to make. Look, everyone, and I mean everyone, even the best investors on the planet, has losses. It is an unavoidable part of the process. The loss itself doesn't define you, but your reaction to that loss, well, that defines absolutely everything. This right here is the cycle that traps so many people. You see a sudden market move, maybe it's way up or way down. Then you feel that powerful, gut-wrenching urge to do something. And before you even know it, you've made a hasty trade that totally goes against your long-term plan. Which brings us to a counterintuitive but incredibly powerful truth. Resisting that urge to act is basically a superpower. Sometimes, the most profitable, most strategic move you can possibly make is to just sit on your hands and do nothing at all. So, to build that psychological shield, you need these three tools in your kit. The composure to stay calm when the market is testing you, the resilience to accept losses without hitting the panic button, and the wisdom to know when inaction is actually the most powerful action you can take. Okay, so we've built our foundation, and we've shielded our emotions. Now we need a compass, something to guide our actions consistently over time. And that, my friends, is the power of discipline. Every investor basically faces these two paths. The path of excitement, well, it's tempting, right? It's all about chasing the latest trend, getting swept up in the hype. It feels dynamic and fun, but it almost always leads to impulsive mistakes. Then you have the path of discipline, and honestly, it can feel pretty boring. It's about sticking to your plan day in and day out. It's not thrilling, but you know what? It is incredibly effective. A huge part of discipline is just learning to filter things out. We are absolutely drowning in opinions, headlines, and predictions. If you try to listen to all of it, you'll just end up paralyzed, or even worse, making contradictory moves. It's so important to remember that more information isn't always better. The key is to focus on your strategy and tune out the rest. So these are the mindsets that really fuel that discipline. You want to be the tortoise, not the hare. Choose that steady, boring path over reckless excitement. Filter out all that external noise. Strive for consistency, like you're building a brick wall, instead of chasing some impossible idea of perfection. And finally, have the confidence to trust your strategy, but also the humility to know that you could still be wrong. Okay, let's bring this all together. After looking at the long game, our emotions, and discipline, what's the ultimate takeaway here? What is your true sustainable advantage in the market? It's this, right here. Your greatest edge doesn't come from being an expert on market mechanics. It comes from being an expert on yourself. Because your mindset determines your actions, and your actions, well, they ultimately determine your results. The real work is to study your own behavior. This quote just nails the entire idea perfectly. It's a reminder that the biggest advantage isn't having a higher IQ, it's having superior discipline. It's that simple, yet incredibly profound, ability to manage yourself. So we're going to end by leaving you with this thought. The most important question you can ask on your investment journey isn't what stock should I buy? The real question, the one you have to ask yourself over and over, is this: can I control myself when things get difficult? Your answer to that question will define your success.